What's good? Damn, you guys got in here quick as shit. Yeah, this morning's been pretty crazy with we had some volatile news. I think it was yeah, we had home sales month over month, and then just new home sales in general. Um, the new home sales month over month was twice as worse as expected. It was, well, a little less. It was expected to be down 4.2%. It was down to 8.1. Um, we don't want to trade off of news, but we can study how price reacts. I was watching US 30. Um, a model that I've been watching on US 30 is watching for the Tokyo liquidity raid, like watching for whichever side of Tokyo gets raided during the New York session. Um, and the highs got rated here. I will say the lows got rated in London though, which is interesting. So I'm kind of forward testing this. We rated it into a fair value gap. Um, an overall nice entry, I think, though, would be up in this area. This would be Pico. That's quite a far ways away. Um, the indices this morning been kind of fickle as far as giving a setup. We rated the sell side really before the session even started, pre market, and that's just a lot of the time due to news like this. And then let's go ahead and take these indicators off. We came back under uh, far more than I would have liked to see to long, because I would have wanted us to clear up, local sell side liquidity. A week went all the way for this week low on a structural. What is this? Cardano. To check that in a second. From a structural perspective, so it seems like the bearish order flow is just still in place at this point. Not looking at as much like a liquidity raid, in my opinion. And you always got to be mindful and be careful when you're trying to play these setups to really wait for something that piques your interest. For me, because I mean, if you look on the 1 minute, we okay, pound dollar is that supply. I wonder if the dollar is falling right now. Yep, makes sense. Where's my at? I think I was on SPY. Yeah, so it's interesting because you see we rated this liquidity here. If you're being really aggressive with a 1 minute, you got technically an internal change of character there with displacement. To me, I would have rather seen us get above this high. More of kind of like the, I guess you'd say a swing high, instead of just rating that little short-term high. I mean, it depends really. With if the daily bias that I have with SPY right now would be agreeing with that, then I would have probably taken that long. But if my daily bias is not that we're going up, I'm not going to force a trade opposing my narrative. So for me, the only clear area of liquidity that I see us drawing to is this imbalance right here. Also, and we've been talking about this level since last week, that all these longs have stop losses right in these areas. So the major area of the H4 sell side liquidity is going to be right there, front running this unfilled gap. And then we've also got a huge gap down below it. Now, if you look at this right here, all of this downward price action, this is going to be an order block on a higher time frame, probably a 12-hour. I put a 12-minute. So, when we're looking at price, we have this massive order block there, and that's kind of an institutional order block. I wouldn't even consider this like a buy off of, this level type deal, but it is a price delivery array. So we can look for price to, potentially reverse there. Um, Also on the daily, it looks like we have a massive move down here as well. So I see quite a bit of liquidity down below. So that would lead our daily bias to be looking to fill these areas in before if we're going to continue up. Um, so, just like we talked about last week, if we saw 2 days in a row after this candle right here get a lower close, or I'm sorry, a lower high, then we're going to be looking at the market from a little bit more of a bearish perspective intraday. Um, we did raid a ton of liquidity. I don't really see. Hold on, somebody's shit's echoing. I don't know whose that was, but we did. We didn't really see, during market hours, any kind of raid to the upside. It was just free falling, even before pre-market. So this morning is kind of weird with SPY. I don't really have. I didn't see something that I would have liked, except had you been trading pre-market and you maybe traded some supply and demand right there. But for me, I mean, looking back, I can see it. I can't say that I was watching charts at this time, so I didn't really see that much interest in it. I usually don't watch indices till right after 8:30. But looking back, it looks like we rated. Is this Tokyo highs? Yeah, so we got a liquidity raid into. We rated the Tokyo highs right there into a fair value gap. It was during London kill zone, so I wasn't awake whenever the liquidity raid setup happened. But there was and this is what I mean when I say different strategies oftentimes correlate whenever they're used correctly. So from maybe like an ICT or just a strictly, somebody who uses liquidity raids, there was the entry was somewhere in here, maybe during the London kill zone. If you raid above this area, it's the same thing that we've talked about. I mean, actually, I really don't see a clear fair value gap entry, but maybe if you use just like a turtle soup model where you just buy or will sell in this example above the old high. But even if you didn't catch that or it didn't give your entry, let's say you're a supply and demand trader. Well, this morning, if we're looking at just general market structure, we already know that we're kind of making these lower highs and lower lows. So we're expecting this low to get taken out. So you would look to get short at any kind of newly introduced supply. So we use the supply fair value gap right there. There was a trade opportunity there, but that's the only thing I really could have seen. Nos had a similar setup up here. I think I actually made this off a 1 hour POI. Yeah. I still see potential to come up into this area if we can at some point reverse. Now, one thing I will say is now that we're trading under this previous week's equilibrium, that's not a great sign, in my opinion. That means that tells me that the NAS is ready to go lower. We candle shelf right off this daily order block. I was kind of anticipating if SPY could hold, and get to these same levels, that the Nasdaq would push up and take these buy stops here, and even maybe higher. But pretty clean reaction off of this area. Now, I mean, there's a daily imbalance in here. This could be something of interest, but a really clean area of liquidity I see are way down here at these equal lows. Now, interest rates are going to be a big factor in how we see price action delivered this week, which those are tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. I'm like 90% sure they're tomorrow. So expect to see heavy volatility leading up to and during those talks. But as of right now, indices are not looking too hot, and I mean that in the sense they're not looking bullish. There's probably going to be trades. Now, something else that I noticed this morning with the US 30 is while indices were tanking, we saw US 30 making higher highs. So we went over this in the private class. If we have, let's say, it's just like the DXY and currencies. For instance, if the dollar is making lower lows, but your let's say Euro USD is making lower lows as well, or lower highs. Well, that could tell you that the euro might be being accumulated because there's a divergence. If the dollar is falling, the euro should be rising. And if it's not and it's falling, we could say that those pushes to the downside are just liquidity rates and that asset is being accumulated. So you can use that same concept with the three sisters, so they call them, the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ. And this morning, we definitely got a pretty clear divergence here. If you look, we were making, pretty clearly lower highs. And then here we were making higher highs, which is interesting. Also, it was into a fair value gap. We rated those Tokyo highs. So, and then going into a lower time frame, if we go into A 5-minute, we definitely saw our break of our short-term low right there with displacement. Now price moved pretty high up above that. Maybe if you go into a lower time frame. Um, Now it pushed up into this zone. It doesn't really seem to be seeing too strong of a reaction here yet. Um, this is more going to be a forward test for me, just because I usually don't trade the US 30. And the times I have, it's been it's almost better just to trade with basic supply and demand than to trade liquidity in my experience. Um, and with the S&P and everything under these lows, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a rally intraday. No signs of that yet. I don't know if I'll be a participant in that, but um, US 30 is holding up much better than either other indice for sure. Here, really though, the ideal entry I would like to see is get all these highs rated, because there's a ton of shorts with their stops resting just above that, like an absolute ton. And then we had this fair value gap on low time frames and that supply and demand flip zone, because price came up, we saw that change of character, price traded back into our newly introduced supply, then broke down again. So we know that there was demand in this wick that this supply had to push through. So that gives us a flip zone being front ran by highs. So, that would be an optimal Pico entry if we can get the price to come up in there and then get the low time frames, make the 5-minute to push to the downside. That's a far ways off. Just following current structure, um, seems, this would almost look more like maybe accumulation into distribution. We have this fair value gap that pushed down pretty rough. Price rated the highs into it, so it's kind of an interesting setup here. I know a lot of people that trade 30 and love trading it, so I've been paying a little more attention than usual. Look at pound, dollar. Did I not just get an alert for that? Or was that a different coin? Or not coin, currency? Oh, I'm on a different. I guess I marked it up twice. I don't know. So we're in this fair value gap into this flip. Let's see. Yeah, so really what I'd want here, so I'm looking at the 4-hour. We came up into this daily imbalance and the 4-hour imbalance. Price pushed pretty tough away from that, and in that process, it created some supply right here. Looks like we've got some equal lows forming, so there's going to be sell side liquidity under that. If we can get a 5-minute change of character up in this region with displacement, I'll probably look to sell, but I think it's still developing. We need to see preferably see another high rand to get these early shorts, all taken out, and then get that change of character with our fair value gap. Patience is going to be key with that, because one thing I've noticed too, especially with pound dollar and euro lately, is it's really good to incorporate a lick rate into your low time frame execution. And what I mean when I say that is, like, let's say you're a 1-minute trader and you've just traded in the 1 minute. Well, you're probably going to get stopped out right here. And this is exactly what I mean. So let's say you have your 15-minute POI. Okay, well, you wait for a change of character. Well, you got that right here. Sometimes it'll work, right? It definitely works. And for those of you who trade the 1 minute, you know what I'm talking about. It definitely can work extremely well. But I think that it's better to wait for a push above these highs, or really just wait for the 5-minute to change character on a lot of these pairs. And that way it gives you a little bit extra confirmation. And usually, the 5-minute changing character, we'll see this push up a low, and then we come up and take those highs, and that's going to be that initial 1-minute change of character getting stopped out, and then you push to the downside. So seems like that's literally happening right now. So I'm going to send an alert for that. I got to sit here and camp on it. We finally getting some life on indices, possibly. Let's see. It's weird today because we've gotten this signal multiple times now. For instance, if you look over here on the Nasdaq, you came under sell side liquidity, pushed above it. Right, you had your fair value gap. It just got annihilated. So that tells me that supply at this time is still in control and makes me a little more hesitant. Along with what you're saying, of course, their daily bias is to the downside, but we've already seen a pretty big move. I don't think it's any question that we have a highly uh, likelihood of closing the day down. That doesn't mean we won't push up a little bit. I'm not really seeing anything that is too convincing in order to enter anything on these indices yet. Let's see this euro dollar. I tweeted this level a while ago. We finally came under it. I think that we could come down a little bit more. I'd love to see us come into this order block. Let's see, we've already got that change of character. So what I'm going to do now is I would mark this last up candle to the down candle right here. And then I'll wait for the 1 minute to come into that. Why does it keep doing that? Wait for the 1 minute to come up into this area, and then if we can get a sell off there, I might take a trade right here. So I'm liking that. This one is moving pretty quick too. We came up and we formed that short-term low, but in the same 5-minute candle, we came down and took it out. With these, I want to make sure we get a good confirmation because you can see a lick raid happen really easily here whenever it's that same candle. Because usually you want to see some structure form because you see prices reacting pretty rough down to that area. Because we came under this low and then immediately you saw engulfing. So patience is going to be key with this as well. What's the DXY doing? That's the question for me. So this should have started rallying. This, I'm a little more, I guess, liberal with what I expect out of DXY as far as from like a supply and demand terminology or not terminology perspective goes. But using the same logic that I use on anything else, I would want to see price flush up into this candle right here because we have all these highs right here, front running a little bit of an imbalance left, and then we have that liquidity target down below, which is that daily imbalance. So that would clean up a lot of the supply and then push us down to the downside, and that would potentially give us a short-term rally on anything denominated by the dollar. Look at ETH too. So ETH's already back down to our daily imbalance. The problem with me with Ethereum here is we're not really in a premium yet. Like the 4-hour structure is bullish, but if we're expecting, because we're going to trade in the context of the higher time frames, that this daily structure, we have here, which is obviously bearish, that we just came back up, pulled back into that premium, and now we're going to see this bearish narrative continue. So what that would entail is that 4-hour getting its clock cleaned and taking out these equal lows. So I don't want to force anything with any kind of longs in crypto right now. I think crypto overall is looking really rough. Clear liquidity target down here. I mean, we're at the daily imbalance, so we could see a push up. But at this point, for most crypto for me, I'm just going to wait for shorts. I'm not even trying to force longs. But this area is of interest, this 1-hour order block right here on Ethereum, because we came back down, we tapped into demand, and blasted right through it. So yeah, this why is it on a different feed? Which one is it on? I think it's on XCM. See, that wasn't It's not ready just yet. I want to see a little more structure form here. Look at gold too. I didn't take this trade. This is back testing, but this has been a clean trade during the London session. I've seen a lot of the movements that I would particularly look for in gold to occur during London, because if you look here, um, this was just clean supply and demand. 4-hour change of character, or no, I think it was a 1 hour. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was a 1 hour change of character. Right here, price came into that higher time frame supply zone. If I can get the thing to click. And then we got a 15-minute change of character in that zone. Super simple. It's nice to see uh, just simple supply and demand work, because a lot of times with gold, you want to use more of like a liquidity rate perspective, but when you can get those easy trades off of just simple supply and demand, I always tell people too, like with smart money, a lot of people want to go down the rabbit hole of like um, really advanced stuff, that a lot of it does work, for sure. But what people don't realize, and a lot of people hate on, that there's like the two realms of smart money. There's like ICT, like super deep smart money, which when done correctly is great. I think it works better for um, mainly indices and major forex pairs as far as intraday price action goes. And then there's the supply and demand traders that trade, you know, similar concepts, but they trade them in a much simpler way. And I will say that for a ton of markets, especially crypto, just simple supply and demand with, keep in mind liquidity. You want to incorporate liquidity, obviously. I'm not saying not to, but um, as far as intraday trading, you'll be able to get, um, I think, a little bit more consistent of results using uh, a more simple approach. Some people disagree with that. That's kind of like what I like to do, is um, simplify smart money, because I think people make it too complicated. Because at the end of the day, maybe you have like an interest in understanding it, and that's one thing. But um, I think that a lot of the supply and demand models are just as profitable as some of the more advanced stuff. Looks like US 30 wants to sell off here. If it can get down with displacement under these lows, because there's a lot of sell stops resting under here. Get those equal lows. Oops, wrong tool. All down under there. It seems like that's what liquidity is going to draw to next. And you can use the draw on liquidity stuff that we went over in the class. You can use it on lower time frames too, but it's a little trickier, and you have to kind of use it in the context of the higher time frames. So far, I mean, US 30 looks like the stronger of the three sisters on a daily chart, but it's a lot of times, if you see the other two start to make these violent pushes to the downside, like we were saying, you want to see a similar narrative with all the other indices. And if you don't, you can say that it's a divergence and one's lagging behind, and that might be your higher value trade. There's a couple setups I had my eyes on. AVAX was one of them, down on this zone. Ideally, if we could move down there with as much displacement as possible. I think I refined it to a 1 hour, because at this point I'd be just longing and targeting internal liquidity, because you know, if I'm longing here, I'm not targeting highs, I'm just targeting imbalances and supply zones. Because like I was saying before, crypto's not looking great. Let's actually, I want to see, I don't really mark up alts as much, but I've been kind of watching AVAX. Very clear liquidity objective there. So we got some equal lows. And this is the same setup crypto is really giving across the board, and we've induced, because like, think about it like this: how many people that weren't bullish here are now bullish here? Just think about that, because that's the mentality that gets induced by the principles that we trade off of. Just how it happens. So always be mindful of that and kind of what the general sentiment is, you know, the public sentiment. Go on, if you want to get like a top signal, go on Twitter and notice when everybody's bullish, because everybody's always late. That's why most people don't make money. So nice reaction off of this daily order block within it, I should say. Filled the daily imbalance. We see this imbalance, but obviously that didn't really give much of a any kind of support. I'd look at this as a daily order block as well, just the highest. And when I'm using these and marking these levels, I'm just looking more for the biggest candle before the big up move on a daily chart. And I'm not going to set a limit off this. I'm just going to have this level, you know, in front of me where I remember where it's at and I'm mindful of it, because these are all going to be potential reversal zones, because there's going to be a lot of mitigation occurring in this area. So you might see a little push into that, small push up, and then that would be able to give you that short entry down to the equal lows. And I'll go ahead and mark all of these supply zones and we'll refine them, of course. I would just say that this candle right here, maybe we're going to 1 hour, we'll be able to get something clearer. I would say this, because you got that sweep zone. Also, let's mark up these fair value gap. Let's see. And it's just slipping right here. Like when you're looking at this, we did just remove a lot of sell side. I would like to see a push back up into some of these supply zones, but you know, I'm not necessarily requiring all the way up here this go entry, but there's not much of a pullback. Seems like this is really your impulse move right here. Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably hang out until then, though, if we start to reverse here, just because I'm looking. I want to get in a premium of that impulsive move, and that also is sitting right at the daily level. A lot of times you'll see this. So like when you have these daily order blocks, if you mark it up correctly, you'll see, like, let's say if somebody's doing Wyckoff on a, you know, I can go ahead and tell you I'm not, you know, the Wyckoff guy, but this is range failure is what that is. And that's a good entry point for a Wyckoff trade. And notice that order block, the 1 hour order block, rests right at the daily order block. What is it, 2417? What's the high of this? 2416. So, and it's not just some kind of coincidence there. Also, we have that sweep zone. I'm going to set an alert for that up there. That would be Pico if we could get up there. That's really what I'm seeing on AVAX. Overall liquidity objective right now would be these equal lows. Solana was another one. This one kind of left me behind. I was big sad about this. We took out that previous monthly high, and it just never came up. That was me using this institutional candle instead of the zone, but that's all right. We kind of just got to stick to our guns and use. I always try to use the last candle if I'm on a 4-hour and not refining it. It's just it's kind of the way I see things that usually work better that way. Let's mark this up. So if we're looking at Solana's swing structure on a 4-hour, we're already pretty deep into a discount. And this is the thing with crypto lately. It's like if you're using these, it's just moving down so fast that it's really not giving. Let's just say if you're trying to trade the 4-hour internal structure. Okay, well, you got that break to the downside. Last candle before that move, it never even went up into that. It barely even went to this fair value gap. Seeming like once you start to see price react more off of, it didn't even hit a flip zone. It's interesting. I guess this breaker kind of was, no, it even, yeah, it did hit into it. I've been seeing that happen more often as well. I'm gonna mark that. That would have actually been a pretty nice. That was a Tokyo reversal, or a London raid actually. Sorry. So your liquidity rate would have been right there. Once you rated that, you saw that break structure to the downside. You could have either, you're a miss, or if you waited for the fair value gap up here, or this one. But if you traded off the breaker, you got an entry. Snipe too. What was that? 4208 and 4208 on the dot. Look up there at the top left. It's exact to the penny. Really here though with Solana, if I'm looking at the 1 hour, I mean, I'm just looking at the most recent impulse move. I'm gonna look right there. And depending, I want a 15-minute reversal signal there, but there's another coin I wanted to look at. No, I already did ETH. Looks like there's these buy to sell wicks. So there's going to be some kind of flip supply in there. Go down and refine that. We'll be able to find it right here. So I like this zone for BNB.
What's
up?
Did you go through that Solana breaker block again? I'm not too familiar with that. I just want to like see an example.
I can barely hear you. You said go over what a breaker block is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. So basically,
that's an example or whatever else, whatever other one.
No, you're good. So basically, what we're looking for in a breaker block. Where's the path? So you're going to look for first an area of liquidity. So let's just say you've got some liquidity, some buy side liquidity over here. There's a high, like a Tokyo high. And you see price kind of come up to it and then does this number, right? So there's going to be some kind of demand zone right here, right? So
whether it's an order block or fair value gap.
Well, you would just be looking for an order block. So let's say you got your order block and then you get this reversal pattern. So price comes down and takes that out, right? So that would be the way you'd play a breaker block. Now you want to see displacement. So let's just say you had a fair value gap right there. Like you came up above the high, right? Because that's your first kind of box to check. Okay, we've got that. We've got our failed demand zone, which now you can say is a breaker block. Because the main thing is you want to make sure that this break stops. So like it has to be the last down candle before the stop rate. And then you want to see displacement moving down into it.
Okay, and then have it like basically be like retested, I guess, like come back up into it.
Yeah, just think of it like an order block. like but you're trading like the opposite way. But it has to raid liquidity though. That's what makes it what it is. It's not just any failed.
Oh, so it has to be the order block created before the liquidity raid, and then continue to the downside.
Yeah, it has to be just the failed order block that was before. The order block that propelled price above the old level of liquidity, or like if you're looking at it from like a bullish perspective, it would look something like that. Now, oftentimes, what we see, and this is a great example of, you know, uh, the correlation between some of these more complicated strategies and um, supply and demand, is let's just say, okay, well, you've got this set up, the same thing, but what's this going to be a lot of the time? So look, like, this entry gets you in a little sooner. Let's just say there's your change of character, right? So we'll say that you had your order block right there. This is from a supply and demand, like change of character perspective. Then you get a break of structure right here. Now, oftentimes that's going to give you, or not oftentimes, all the time, that's going to give you a new flip zone. Now, this doesn't always just go, to the heavens like that. What it can do is it breaks structure, and then you see that same, you see price come back down and move up. And what that's doing is coming down and mitigating that newly introduced demand. But somebody who just trades ICT will tell you, oh, that was a breaker block entry. But then somebody who trades supply and demand is going to tell you that that was a flip zone entry. Now, sometimes this guy's going to get entry, sometimes this guy's going to get entry, and then the other one won't. Or sometimes they both do. So just take it with a grain of salt. You can see if you're going to look at it from this perspective, you need to pick one perspective and be that, if you know what I mean. Like it needs to be, you need to be either don't try to play both because you'll just end up confusing yourself or rationalizing narratives that you kind of like want your brain wants to see. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. No, I hear you. I'm more familiar with like ICT in general, so I probably just run with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that made sense.
No, yeah, it looks bro.
For sure. Crypto is just
Yeah,
like fuck, bro. This shit looks like absolute death.
no, for real, for real. You got the auras on right now.
No, they're actually they're at I had to send them off to the lab to get a new lenses put in them because I'm getting the blue light lenses put in them.
Yeah, well, what you just mailed them in, and then they're gonna send it back to you.
Yeah, I just dropped. It was at literally Lens Crafters, bro. Like I just dropped out with them, and they're gonna put the blue light stuff in them.
Like one that's local in your area, or
Yeah, it's just the Lens Crafters.
yeah, I'm gonna Google that and actually probably do that today, honestly.
Yeah, they have. Do they have lockers up there where you're at? I'm sure they do. I feel like I've never been anywhere
Yeah,
they don't.
yeah, I looked it up last night, and there was one that's not too.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna get that done. About to get those brown johns too, like fucking the actual sunglasses.
Oh yeah. Honestly, Ape. I want to see. Let me see how this is looking because I wanted to. This is when I wanted to really catch a nice move on. It seems like it's just now about to get that daily change of character, like literally right now. Um, if that happens, which it looks like it wants to, I'm gonna start looking for sells to swing. Seems like that got mitigated. I would probably actually look for this. Hmm. There's that to pay attention to as well. Starting to, I mean, this looks like distribution and a half. Yeah, if we get that daily change of character, that's going to lead me to look for that daily pullback being over. And I mean, this shit looks tough because now we're in a. So we got this once already, but the early bears got shook out because we weren't in a premium, but you see as soon as price comes into a premium of the range, the daily range, it's, reacting impulsively. So that tells me that, price seemingly wants to go lower. Now, I haven't really marked up ape like I mark up indices, but let's give it a shot. Price is price. Not M, but I don't know why it starts in this like 16 font with like I don't understand that. But so I'd look at this level right here. It looks like is the next kind of area liquidity is drawing to, and then we've got another daily imbalance just above. This one would be more of a reversal point. Also, it looks like this is going to be right around that higher supply zone. It is. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take that off, and I would just watch for this. And then other than that, I mean, literally just from a daily structural view, it looks like we want to go take out these lows down here. That would be a nice target for sells. I might play a little ping pong here, take out these lows, return back up to that imbalance. And if we could do that before filling this, that would be optimal for a short narrative. I think I set alerts for both zones. I need to take one of them off. No, this would be ideal. A lot of stops are about to get taken out at these levels right here, all through there. That would be kind of like your sign of weakness on the daily. I think it's low time and that's literally anytime we see the daily changing character, we can most of the time discern that is going to be a lower time frame distribution because here you have your preliminary supply, secondary test, up thrust, no UTAD it seems, but and then price is now seeming to get that range failure, as with a lot of crypto. What are indices doing? Come here, buddy. My cat's over here going crazy. He's like a dog. He like brings a toy to me to like throw. But sorry. Doesn't really seem like they're showing much strength yet. Still bearish order flow on the 5-minute. They're trying though, I'll tell you that. It's just this to me doesn't really seem that appealing. Because over here was the only questionable area, but it was still kind of lackluster. I mean, if you go to 1 minute and not the 5-minute, like for instance, the 5-minute we got to change a character here. There's no displacement really, anything super visible with the break, except on a 1 minute, which I usually don't like. Like I want to see, like for instance here, what time is it too? It's 11:14. You'd want to see price really push up above this, but even then, for me, I don't really like taking trades after 11 until after lunch at least. Usually news give a nice setup, but seems like today the only potential setup I even see was 30, but it's starting to form those sell stops and build up those stop losses right there. Although I will say it did that here and definitely sold off. Did we ever get what we needed on? Not yet, it's getting there though. And this is a great example of why you want to be patient whenever you're framing these lower time frame entries, because if you force your perspective on something, you can, like earlier you guys saw, let's say you're a 1 minute trader, oh, you got to change a character there, you got stopped out. Let's see, and no change. You just now got your change of character on a 1 minute, but A lot of times it's better to wait for that 5 minute. If you're in, like, let's say you're kind of trying to catch a top right here, and not, I don't encourage trying to catch tops, but you're playing a reversal, I should say. So you want to be a little bit more conservative with your entries because the overall structure has been bullish, but I'm looking at it more from like the day levels we just attacked, and price is definitely showing some weakness coming up into them. And we saw that change of character right there. And also this, I guess, here's a great example of like a 4-hour breaker would be right here. Because you came up, you took those stops right there. That was your liquidity raid, and then you push the downside displacement. Also, I think the whole don't quote me on this, but I think you don't want to see it go far above the breaker blocks high. But I'm not. I more so use them as confluence. I don't really use them as like a level to trade off of or like frame an entry just around the breaker itself. But pretty sure that's usually what you want to see. You want to see it get rejected off the high. I'm more just waiting for the 5 minute to switch bearish here. US 30 just barcoding, while the other indices are just death plummeting. I've noticed too there's been good setups in London for indices, or at least good setups beginning. In that London kill zone right here between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Eastern time. And then also, like, if you take the New York kill zone here, which is going to be 7 to 10 a.m., draw a line out. Move this down. You can always, if you'd like, sometimes draw lines, and you can see, extend this Okay, there we go. Sorry guys, my internet faded in and out. Yeah, right. Fuck, dude. I'm actually moving to a new house on Friday, and I got 1200 megabit internet, but I got it from Xfinity.
Yeah, that's actually what I have right now is Xfinity. It's been fire so far.
Oh yeah. Okay, so now GU is setting up. More clear. Why did I do it twice?
You're not streaming, by the way.
Oh, just on YouTube here. I'll only put it on Discord. There we go. Forget it. Cut it out. So okay, so GU now got that 5-minute change of character. For me, I'm gonna be looking at this candle up here as an entry. Just go ahead and what is this? That's 102447. Now, for you guys that are watching this, this is going to be different depending on your broker. Your levels are going to be different. Looks like it's at a 10 pip stop loss. For me, that's plenty enough for me. So let me set this order. Give me a second, guys. Actually, the more I look at it, I kind of like this flip zone. And that's probably going to still give me the risk reward I need.
So what are your Casper? What are the main pairs you focus?
Give me 1 second. I'll tell you in 2 seconds. 346. I think it's actually already right. There we go. So that's going to be 20 pip stop. 4A, so 2. Sorry, I have to like put this in and then signal it to the server. Yeah, and for those wondering why I moved it up, when I'm looking at this, I see, yes, the initial impulse started right here, right? But whenever I'm on these lower time frames, if I see a push down into this zone right here, all right, we'll see a push into that. For one, this is going to be a lower time frame breaker. That's not really my reasoning, but my main reasoning is that we see a push into this demand zone, price pauses, and then more supply is really pumped into the market. So we're seeing a huge inefficiency of supply and demand here, and we have a fair value gap right there. And I can maintain my 3R or better risk to reward. You know, that's more than enough for me. And also a TP right there. You know, one could extend this if they wanted, but for me, I'm cool with taking the gains. There's a lot of equal lows there. Hopefully those don't get hit before our limit or I'll have to cancel. But it's a good enough setup for me to take without trying to force it and extend our targets. You know, obviously price can always continue. We know that, but I look at it from a perspective that there's a lot of sell side liquidity right here. This kind of was what I was framing my trade around when I first got this idea. So I don't want to be greedy. I'm totally fine with 3R if we can get it. Yeah, on that note, I'm gonna probably hop off here, guys. Really, all I'd be watching for is potential. Oh, yeah, there you go. Just like we were talking about. That's nice. I'll add this to the. Oh yeah, the pairs. You want me to tell you the pairs, right? Okay, so this is like my whole watch list.
What main pairs do you like? What main pairs do you focus on? I'm just gonna focus on just like maybe I don't know 2-4 pairs and just kind of like chart them out, and then.
I would focus on like euro dollar, Aussie dollar, pound dollar, and then indices, and then also like if you really. I don't want to encourage degeneracy, but what I like to do is like, for instance, I added USD CAD because there's a lot of USD news. Fuck, I just watched this one slip away this morning. But speaking of the devil, but anyways, wanted to long up this fair. It really didn't come down into anywhere I would have taken it, to be honest. I wanted to come under here, but you know, when we have a lot of volatile news, you know, like for instance, when we knew that we had US dollar news, right? Coming in, we knew that there's a potential this sell side liquidity is going to get raided. We saw that, right? Price obviously raided it, and this was definitely a raid. So you can kind of meander around, like, you know, watch the news calendar, and if you see high impact news. Now, I don't want to encourage people to do this if you're not experienced, and not even just not experienced, but experienced in using liquidity raids.
Yeah,
because you can get annihilated. But you know, once you see a lot of high impact, like last week, European interest rates came up.
yeah.
They were
Well,
really good setups.
I'm definitely pretty familiar with liquidity rates, but could you send me that watch list, that
Sure.
FX 2022?
Got you. Ignore some of the crypto ones because those I kind of cycle in and out. But
Yeah, no, I kind of figured I saw OP on there. I was like, what the fuck? I would expect to see like Sol, AVAX, like TRX, the BNB, like the higher market.
Fuck. How do I haven't done
You
this in
go
forever.
to
Thought it was like right here, and then
no, go to those top 3 buttons in the top right, and it is.
It used to be here though.
Yeah, it should be import.
Share list. Maybe. Oh, I can probably copy it. I guess this is the new age way. I mean, I literally just shared one of these not long ago.
I guess. I mean, if you just copy it, maybe DM it to me.
I just DM'd it to you. Yeah, I guess that's how you do it now. That's actually better. But
yeah, that is actually smart.
Yeah, but on that note, guys, I'm gonna hop off here. I appreciate you all. If you have any questions, just hit me up. Oh yeah, also, if you guys have any suggestions on different, you know, concepts that I could make like an infographic on to help you guys, let me know because I'm gonna be kind of pumping some of those out for the upcoming week, and I want to make sure it's tiered to what you guys want. So let me know if there's anything you guys can think of, any questions. You guys always know my DMs and anything, any way to get at me is always open.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I'll hit you on Twitter, bro.
awesome. All right, guys. I'll see y'all later.
Take it easy, bro.